It is showtime today. Welcome to AI Mistakes. Boy, what an incredible week it's been in AI news. And I really want to dive into it. There's so many things that have been going on, but I've been really reflecting on what we've seen. And so today I want to talk about how not to make AI, learning from AI failures. Now, when we talk about things in the AI space, there's some pretty fundamental areas that we need to talk about. And I want to start tonight as I'm thinking about all of the things that I've learned about in the AI space this week, failures and mistakes. So, listen, it was about a year ago that I really dove into this concept of AI mistakes. So, I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like to make mistakes and the process of learning. And I want to talk about what led me to have this conversation today about learning from AI failures. It's been kind of a challenging week for AI, to be totally honest. I learned a lot in my undergraduate education at university. A lot of computer science related content, learning how to code, building programs, identifying what was important to solve real problems. One of the things that we talked a lot about in the world of technology, just computers and programming, was this concept of garbage in, garbage out. It still remains 100% on target. This is probably the number one thing you have to remember when you're working with a computer. And honestly, as amazing as today's generative AI and classical AI capabilities are, this rule has not changed, not one little bit. And this week is more evidence of exactly that. And so we're going to have to talk about it. We'll go into detail, but look, this is computer science 101, okay? If the data you plug in is flawed, if it's poor quality, if it has bad content, if the core data is not right, you are going to have a problem. And unfortunately, I feel like there's some folks in the computer industry that are struggling with this idea right now. What do I mean? Well, before I go on with the presentation, let's just talk about some of the deals that have been happening in the news. Probably the biggest one we talked about recently on the channel was Reddit has made their database available to more than one AI provider. It's a very popular data set, quite honestly. Reddit's got some pretty amazing content. They built a really great community driven environment where people can have fun and talk to each other, share their experiences, answer questions, help other people learn. But unfortunately, that data is not always the best source for getting good answers. And unfortunately, this week we had some learning in the space about what could happen. And I'm just going to jump right in and share my screen to give you the prime example of where things didn't quite go right. So this is a screenshot, and I've pulled this up on my Twitter feed. X. I still call it Twitter. My apologies. I make a mistake just like other human beings do. And unfortunately, the AI inherits our human mistakes. This AI overview provided by Google, and this is really the more funny one, if I'm honest, that there were a few others that I've seen. I don't think I'm going to show them on the feed tonight. You can do searching on your own if you really want to see it. But look, this AI overview about cheese not sticking to a pizza actually suggests adding glue to the sauce. Now, could you eat it if it were non-toxic? I mean, the kids eat the paste in kindergarten and they make it so that it can't harm the kids. But let's just be honest, okay? This is not great. This is not what you want to see in your AI overview results, we can do better. But where did this answer come from? This answer came from Reddit. And Google knows what's important because they do all of this incredible work. I mean, look, where would we be today without Google? Their search results really are the best across the board. And in fact, when you talk to people that don't use Google as their search engine, the reason they don't use Google as their search engine really has nothing to do with the quality of the results that come out of the search engine. Google has this down to a science. They own search to a substantial degree. And there are many other companies that have come along to challenge Google in their search prowess. And look, the reality is Google is taking all of that information and they're leveraging it for use in building answers with AI. In fact, AI search has been something Google's been working on for quite some time. You may remember a few years ago, Google started to give you answers at the top of the search results that would take snippets off of the actual result sites and give you the answers. And there were problems with that methodology even a few years ago. The core root of the problem that Google is having is that they are indexing and trying to understand context and pull that forward into our search experience so that we're finding the answers that we're looking for. The unfortunate thing is the internet is really just kind of unreliable. That's the core conflict here. And, it's kind of funny because as I was doing my preparation for the conversation tonight, I was really looking for more examples of the problem. And unfortunately, my tool for presenting tonight was being a little bit problematic in terms of being able to surface and share the information, but I just used the straight up browser. I think this is a comical example of exactly the kind of problem that we have. This search really encapsulates the essence of the problem. And while it does say AI overview and it's got some text on the screen and it looks like Google search results, this is the other part of the conversation that we have to have. Not everything you see on the internet is real. Not everything you see on the internet is useful. And in fact, if you think critically and use your brain a little bit, anybody can make an image of anything and make you believe that that's what's really happening. The irony here, of course, is that many people, when I talk to them about AI, they're really concerned about fake news. They're really concerned about AI creating these ideas and making them look real. But here's the thing. We don't need AI for that. All you need is a computer. I said most recently in the newsletter for this month, and if you're not signed up for the newsletter, help me out. Sign up for the newsletter. Sharing some great thoughts out there. I spend quite a bit of time putting that together. And it really gives me an opportunity to reflect and think about the bigger things that are happening in AI. And that's probably a part of the reason why I really wanted to dig into this problem today on the show. Because, look, anybody can make anything look real using a computer and the latest technologies. This is a very simple example. We laugh about the mistakes that AI is making. There's been a lot of conversation over today and yesterday about this AI overview. In fact, earlier today, I saw some social media that indicated that Google might have pulled the AI overview for many accounts. A few weeks ago at Google I/O, they announced that they were going to bring the AI search overview capability to the general masses. And so you might be seeing this AI overview in your search results. And this absolutely does look real. But what if it's not? And that's the problem that we have, okay? But also, it's not like Google set out to do something bad here. They're actually trying to improve the user experience. So I also think that we need to take this with a grain of salt and recognize that there is real effort to do good things here. But also, when anybody and everybody can post anything on the internet, that could create a problem. And so we have to keep that in mind as we're having this discussion, because it's not just intent, it's actually output that matters. And this is why we need to talk about AI more in depth. You want to know what the real secret of artificial intelligence is? The real secret of building great artificial intelligence? It's actually super, super simple. And you're going to roll your eyes when I put the next slide up here. It's all about the data. If you don't provide a good source of information behind your model, no matter what that model is built of, you're going to get bad results. So, what got us here with Google is that they're using the internet as the source of information. How reliable is the internet? I got to be honest with you. This is not a new problem. Okay. This has been a problem from the very early days of the internet because anybody can post anything. Now, let me just wax religious here for a moment. I'm a guy of faith. Okay. And one of the things that it really intrigues me is the way that people perceive the ancient texts that we use, that I use. I use the Bible on a regular basis. In fact, I'll just be straight up with you. I read it on a daily basis. Why? Because I think it's a great source of knowledge and information. Now, I realize that not all of you are going to agree with that perspective, and that's totally cool. But here's the thing. The internet is fantastic because guys like me can create a video and post it on a website, and people around the world can watch it at any time of day. I can say anything I want. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to watch it, but I have the ability to communicate worldwide instantaneously through the power of the internet. That's fantastic, but it's also terrible. Because what if the things that I tell you are false, are fake, are made up, are not high quality, are not well researched, are useless, or in many cases, unfortunately, misleading? This is the concern about AI, but we don't need AI for that to be the case. So we have to be really careful, right? Who do you trust for the information that you're getting? Now, I'll be honest, I want you to trust me. I want to give you good quality information because I want to know the people that are interested in the things that I'm sharing. And I want you to be able to trust what I say. Because for me, what I have is the way that I communicate with you in a trusting way. In fact, trust is a very difficult thing to earn. And it's very quick to lose. And I think that's the problem that Google is really seeing this week. And I think they're trying to navigate the situation. But we have the opportunity to learn from what's happening here, right? We don't have to build a model that gives bad information to see that people are going to lose their trust in those results. I saw early on after the announcement, there were quite a few people that I interact with on social media that basically straight up said, no, Google, don't do this AI search for everybody because it's going to create a problem. Why did they say that? Because a lot of these people that I interact with on social media deal with computers on a daily basis, right? We all learned this early on. It's computer science 101, garbage in, garbage out. We cannot take this lightly. It's very important for us to think critically about what we're building. And when it comes to building artificial intelligence models and capabilities, which are coming to you and I mean, look, today it takes a very big company with lots of resources to build an AI model that you can use for all sorts of questions. It's very intelligent. But I've already had the opportunity to build models, and you can make very simple models with the right set of data. And so we can learn from what Google has been doing. What concerns me is that there's a lot of organizations that are tapping the databases that are on popular sites, but there's a culture around the community of those sites, and it's not always helpful. I mean, look, I'm a computer guy. Okay. I've been doing this for 25 years. I fell hard into computing before I was even out of high school. I love this stuff. I love to program. I love to play games. I love to learn about the latest technology. It's fun stuff for me, right? But there's a lot of people out there that rely on what I know to make the computers work because they don't care about computers. In fact, they don't want to know how it works. They just want it to work. And that's really the lesson that we need to take away from what we're seeing in the news this week. And I'm picking on Google right now, but let's just be honest. We got a lot more to talk about than Google. And I don't even need to pull up the feed and show you what's been happening in the news because you've likely seen it in multiple different ways. It's hit the standard news. What happened with OpenAI last week and their big announcement around their voice? There's been a lot of back and forth with a particular Hollywood actor, some conjecture around using the voice print or the vocalizations of a particular actress. There's some legal trouble that's going on with OpenAI. And look, before we even dig into exactly what's happened with that circumstance, the reality is it's the same problem, right? It's an organization that does something that loses trust, whether or not it really happened. The way that you respond to that situation is really critical. And we've seen this pattern again and again. And that's the thing about humans, right? We are pattern recognition machines, and we're trying to impart that same mechanical mechanism, however, we've learned about the human brain, to do exactly the same thing. And it's kind of ironic that we're surprised that when we put lots of information into a system and it gives us back the answer that we taught it, we're surprised by it. This is funny to me as a parent, okay? Because if you have little kids, there are things that they have learned from you that you did not intend for them to learn. But they're pattern recognition machines. They give back to you what you give them because that's how we learn. As humans, we take all of this data that's given to us and we turn it into something that is valuable by being productive, by creating solutions, by building things, by interacting with each other. That's what we've built these models to do, to learn from all of human existence and then for it to give it back to us. Now, there's a lot of speculation out there around the concept of artificial general intelligence and what that means. I've had a little fun thinking about that problem this week. There's a couple of very well-known AI science folks that have been in the space for a very long time. And they're talking, they're sharing their thoughts and reactions to the latest and greatest capabilities in artificial intelligence. One of the folks that I like to read on a regular basis is Gary Marcus. He's well known in the AI space, and he's been pretty tough on organizations like OpenAI and what they're doing with generative AI. But Gary isn't the only one that is saying that we might be hitting the limits of what's really possible with these models. We've seen this before in AI. In fact, if you've been around AI for more than a few years, if you were in AI and understanding how to use it and build useful things with it prior to ChatGPT, you already know that being an AI person hasn't been the greatest over the last decade. I had an opportunity to get into AI much earlier on. I've been researching and understanding it for quite a few years. Now, I don't know that I'd call myself an expert in the early days of AI, but we've been trying to make these things work for a very long time. And part of the way that we've made AI work for us is to take what we've learned from the human brain. And the place that I really first learned about this was from Jeff Hawkins. And he wrote a book called On Intelligence that I read very shortly after it was published. And Jeff Hawkins really details everything that he knows about the human brain and how we learn and how it's constructed. And he's been working with some of the brightest minds to replicate those kinds of capabilities. When we look at the way that an AI model works, it is very mathematically based, and it is a replication of what we understand about the brain. Now, honestly, we know that the way that that works isn't what we've been able to build in AI models. But we have really brilliant minds in the AI space that we can learn from. And Yan is one of those people for me. I really want to make this bigger. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit here to this posting that Yan put on Twitter earlier. Sorry, X, I still get it wrong. I make mistakes. There's this really great article. And so if you're not familiar with Yan LeCun, he works at Meta, and he's been a major part of what Meta has been able to build in terms of an AI capability, one of the greatest minds. And what he is sharing with us this week is that he's beginning to think about an entirely different architecture for building world models. Now, we've talked about large language models. We've talked about multimodal models. And when OpenAI did their update to GPT-4, they're calling it an omni model because they've added more things to it, right? So we've got text, we've got audio, we've got images, we've got video, we've got live speech or spoken words that are being brought together in the model. This concept of a world model is a model that understands not just those specific domains, but anything and everything that you throw at it. We're getting to a level of complexity with the models that we might be hitting some real limitations in terms of what the model is capable of giving to us. And when we think about what's possible, we know from history in the study of AI that we will frequently hit a local minimum or a local maximum. Now, that's a numerical expression. And basically, what that means is you get to a point in the data where if you move a little bit one way or the other, your numbers, your statistics, your answers, your statistical model fit goes in the wrong direction because you're in an area where you've maximized the result for what is currently possible. Well, what Yan is sharing with us here is that they're looking at additional ways that you can build these models and put them together because we might be hitting the limitations of the current generative AI capabilities that we've built so far. And this is an important thing for us to talk about. Now, look, we know that OpenAI has been building the next version of GPT for a while. GPT-5 is a real thing. You and I don't have access to it because there's a lot of work that goes into making that available for us to play with. The estimates of what we've already learned about the current version of GPT-4 is that OpenAI's had it for many, many months. And for a variety of reasons, they haven't made it publicly available. There's no reason to think that where Meta is doing their research today with these models is substantially different. And in fact, we also know the same is true of Google. I'll give you a good example. So as I was putting together my thoughts and trying to collect a better understanding of what Google has put together, I've got a ton of tabs that I've opened up and I've looked at. But as I was studying what Google had released and some of the blog posts and information to put that together, what I came across was this post about video effects. Now, what's interesting here is we've got the capabilities in ChatGPT where you can talk to the AI and it will do the transcription and it will talk back to you. And the release of the Omni model does all of that in one go. But I was looking at the article and I was reading through it, and it just so happened that I was like, okay, what's this listen to article? That's not a button that I press all the time. And I hit the listen to article, and the quality of the reading, the AI reading the article here, was actually pretty astonishing to me, like very high quality. I think it is on the level of the highest quality text to voice that is out there. And so I actually went into the code to look at, hey, how is Google implementing this? And they have an internal plugin that they're using to make this capability available. What's interesting is you and I don't have this available for consumption. This listen to article feature right here, you and I can't do it. It's not available. Clearly, Google has the technology to deliver this, but they've not made it easily accessible, at least not that I can tell. Now, if you're watching this and you know otherwise, please let me know, because I wasn't able to find it. There was tons of announcements that Google made at Google I/O, but the availability of a capability like this was not one of them. See, all of these artificial intelligence capabilities are being worked on by some of the smartest minds in the world, and you and I don't get access to it right away. In fact, if there's anything I can tell you about the way that these things are developed, it is that there are many people that care deeply about putting out a high quality solution. And sometimes we get into a rush. And I think that that is also a part of what we need to talk about here, because when you look at where we are in AI, who gets all of the attention? OpenAI gets a lot of the attention because they've got the big product that everybody talks about. Everybody talks about GPT-4 being the best model. I've said it myself. When OpenAI released GPT-4o a week ago, I was on my channel talking about how good it was, how fast it was, how impressed I was with what they put together, because I really see that as a super impressive thing. But we have to talk about what's being shared on social media, because that's one of the sources I use for understanding what's going on in the world. And I came across this post last week, and you got to see this. I think it's really important. This is an insider, somebody that's been inside the machine at Google working on AI, and he's responding to some of the press statements around Google I/O. Gizmodo, which I read occasionally, they tend to be kind of harsh sometimes. They were kind of saying that Google's I/O this year was boring. And there were quite a few people that said, it was a little bit repetitive in the AI space. This fellow that left Google was sharing that basically Google is kind of in a rush to put some solutions out there for us to consume, because they feel like they're a little bit behind the game. But I got to be honest here. I don't think Google is behind the game. I think Google has a lot of really fantastic research. Honestly, every time we get a paper from some of the minds at Google, I'm really impressed. Google Research is doing some really fantastic work, and they're sharing it with everybody. They're not keeping that a secret. They're sharing what they learned. Now, they may not be giving us a model to play with, but they're doing great work. And they really do have some cutting edge people. I think the challenge that Google is having isn't so much the AI as it is the way that they're applying the AI. And this is the common problem in technology. And I've said this a number of times, and I really feel this with every bit of who I am, because I've been in technology for 25 years. Probably the most valuable lesson I've learned that I want to share with you is you can have the best tech, you can have the best people, but if you don't apply it to the right problem, you've done nothing. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here with Google. They're trying to put it into a place that is not a really good fit. What do I mean? Well, when we build things with technology, we have a certain expectation in how it works. Google is very familiar to all of us. We've been using it for years. And when you go back to what life was like before we had Google, Donald Norman, when he wrote The Design of Everyday Things, actually has an entire chapter at the end of his book talking about, I don't know what we're going to do because Yahoo's not going to be enough. It doesn't scale with the internet. See, when Donald wrote the book, we didn't have Google. He was trying to imagine how we were going to solve that problem from an experience perspective. And what we see here with Scott's comments, right? He's a UX strategy and design guy. Why is that important? See, I think user experience is essential to building good products. And it's something I've learned in my experience working deeply with innovation. You can have the best technology if it crunches the right numbers. But when you put that in front of a person and they don't understand it, or they can't use it well, or it doesn't suit the purpose that they need, it's a real problem. And this interface that Google has built for you and I to interact with the AI search, I think is really the crux of the problem. When you look at what it does, it puts it at the very top of the page, right? So it's the very first thing that you see, which ostensibly would help you find the answer that you're looking for more quickly. Now, there's plenty of opportunity for Google to improve the way that this works, but let's talk a little bit about what Google did that was good in this AI overview. This is a great example. They're actually showing you in the results where that result is coming from. So they're letting you know that this AI overview is coming from Reddit. Look here. It's right here in the results. Reddit, our comedy heaven. This is a joke. But that context isn't included for you and I to see in the answer. We have to use our brain to figure that out. Now, when we started the discussion tonight, what did I say? How not to build AI and what we can learn from it. The number one problem that has already been observed with AI is how you and I are reacting to those results. See, the problem here is that what Google gave us was a tidbit. We're so used to being able to take what Google gives us because their results are high quality and just accept that that's the answer that we're looking for. While trying to improve what they've built, they haven't reset that expectation with you and I. And we're not trained to look more deeply into where that answer is coming from. And that's where these bad results are really foundationally starting from, because we have an expectation of what the interaction will be with a computer. And the lesson that we need to take away from here, I'm just going to steal straight from the very same tweet. IBM did some work many, many years ago, and this is something that IBM shared with the world when they put out the paper. And it's really, really old. It had to have been in the 1960s or 70s. I didn't look this up before I got in front of you tonight, but I think this is a very astute decision that somebody made many, many years ago that absolutely applies to what we're doing with AI today. And it really speaks volumes. A computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. So what does that mean? Because this is something that we need to fight with. And I think that we are far from done with having to deal with the factual reality of this statement. We've seen in the courts today that you really can't be crediting the AI as the source. Why? Because it could come from a lot of different places. A person has to be involved. You have to be able to attach a human being to the problem. Why? Because we have to be responsible for what happens. A human being has to be responsible because still today, computers are computers. They calculate numbers. The magic of AI that you and I experience, writing, doing incredible image generation, it's all based on math. And we have to keep that in mind. Maybe someday in the future we'll have AGI and it will be smarter than we are. But I must tell you, friend, today is not that day. And so we have to take responsibility for what we build. If you're building an AI model, if you're building an application that is using AI, it's your job to earn and keep the trust of those people that are using your system. And you have to put in the necessary protections. You have to think deeply about how you're going to design and promote the solution to give good outcomes. Now, the irony of the situation that we see today is that the quality of results that we're already getting from these AI tools is absolutely phenomenal. In fact, I get the joy every week to play with this stuff and to learn about it and then come and share it with you. And before I jumped in, I went out and just did a quick search to understand, hey, what are some of the mistakes that these big organizations are making with AI, just to kind of see what answers I would get. And these are all solutions that I pay for today because I want to get the absolute best quality results I can. Now, my personal favorite is Perplexity. And what did it say? We got some trouble with the AI overview in Google. We've already talked about that. OpenAI's had some trouble with their deepfake detection tool, right? They're certainly not perfect. And they've got some things going on with finding errors in reflective tests. We talked a few weeks back on the channel about the benchmarks and how they've kind of become unreliable because of what's going on. And, you know, the one that I haven't spent very much time talking about tonight, but I want to spend a few minutes on before I close out the discussion is Copilot is a really interesting thing. A few weeks back, when I did the Copilot presentation, I was really excited about what Microsoft was doing in Copilot. I still think Copilot has some tremendous opportunity, and using it in the likes of Microsoft Word is really fun to write a paper with Copilot. Using it in PowerPoint was not a good experience for me, and I do a lot of presenting, and that's one of the most important features of Copilot for me. I wasn't getting the results, so I turned it off. And the announcements that Microsoft made this week, it's not showing up here. We're not seeing it in any of the results. Gemini didn't get it right. Perplexity didn't get it right, and neither did ChatGPT. The thing that we need to talk about is this new feature that Microsoft has turned out, which lets you record everything that happens on your computer. The problem is, as wonderful a choice as that is, as cool as it is to be able to go back and remember what you looked at on your computer, there's so many ways that can be turned around on you and I for bad. It's kind of a concern. So there's some more work to be done. But yet, that's the kind of feature that the big brains are thinking about bringing to market for you and I to use. And this is the real takeaway that I want to share with you tonight. As I close out the conversation to how to think deeply about what we're building with AI products, how to not make AI something that becomes evil. The only way that we can do that is to learn from failure, to be able to study these. So as you're seeing these kinds of things happen, what are the questions that you're asking in your own mind as you're reading the news? That's the value. In fact, we have incredible minds. The most important thing that we can do in interacting with AI is to engage the brain. My favorite feature of AI is that I can learn things so fast compared to having to conduct the research and dig things up, or even in many years ago, go to the library to interact with a physical book to learn a thing. The most important thing that we can use AI for is to increase the knowledge that we have, because it's always with you. Wherever you go, you can use your brain and engage with other people. So don't make the mistake of letting the AI be the authority on anything. When you see that AI search result, engage your brain and think, wow, is that really the right answer? Think, wow, can I trust where that information is sourced from? Because Google is simply surfacing the information that's already available on the internet. OpenAI is doing exactly the same thing, as is Microsoft. There's no special sauce there. When you build artificial intelligence, there's a data set behind it. That data has to come from somewhere. Where did it come from? How was it sourced? What did they do to build the model? These are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And if you are in charge of selecting AI tools or incorporating AI for the use, whatever it may be, whether you're an educator or a business person, or even if you're just doing it for yourself, think critically about where that information came from and how it was sourced, because this problem is not going to go away. Garbage in, garbage out is real, and that has not fundamentally changed. We can use AI to help us identify where things went wrong, but that right now still means that we have to engage the brain. So, the lesson this week that I want to share with you is think critically and go make some mistakes, right? One of the best ways that we have to learn is to study mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, but as a friend shared with me a quote earlier this week, just make sure it's not the same mistake. Learn from your mistakes. Go make your noggin a little bit better this week. Use AI to help you. We see you here next week on AI mistakes. Have a great week.